Hello and welcome to Background Designer tutorial. Now when you download Background Designer you'll see the zip folder. Just want to extract that. Open it up and make sure you don't have any weird firewall stuff on like AVG or anything like that. It tends to interfere with the saving process, or at least make an exception for it. Okay, so when you load up Background Designer, you'll see a little welcome message and the pick a brush message here. You can basically then click on one of your brushes here. I say your brushes because you can also load your own brushes into these user categories. Just now I've got some ones I've been testing. And these brushes were all made within Background Designer itself, including backgrounds. I'm just going to clear these out by using edit and clear custom files. And basically it's asking me if I'm sure, because what will happen is it's going to clear all these files and that might affect any images that I made that depend on these brushes. And I'm talking about images that are files that belong to Background Designer. They're not core images like PNGs. They're more like files that belong to Background Designer that plot these brushes down. So I just want to say yes because I want to show you how to make these. So that's cleared everything out and restarted, and you can see this is all now free for me to bring in a good number of brushes and use for mini projects. So to start with, you have a whole lot of brushes here with more to come. There'll be some reserved areas that show up red. They'll be for me to add more brushes in the future. And there's lots of different shapes still to come, some weather here, some more to come, some pathways, more to come, and some people and animals. I'll be using this as a kind of placeholder for extra foliage as well, and a whole lot of city and ruins still to be added. But I want to show you how to make up your own brushes in here. So let's just go to the circle shape, and now when you see this, it looks kind of odd, but you can see the colours of it, they resemble these. And when I come over this area, the brush preview comes up. And that's good because now I can kind of see what happens if I take away this colour. So with clear mode on and I take these colours away, it actually makes them transparent. But if this is solid, it makes them solid colour. And I can change this colour to whatever I want. Red. This one I can change to white. This colour I can change to blue. And whatever colour this does, which looks like the top, I can change that to yellow and end up with something like this. So you can see that these colors actually change the original colors of this this brush, which you'll see if I bring this down to the left. This is the original colors this brush was made of. It's mostly red, green and blue and a mixture. So if I take all these tones away, let's bring it all to clear. Right, and I bring in the base tone, you see everything shows because of this original colour, but if I bring this to the new colour, the base tone's actually solid, and then the blue tones here is what's controlling the tone in the middle. That's why you see this part here looking blue. Right, and then I bring in this tone, which is mostly blue. You can see it's making a kind of outer edge, and then this one is like a gradient. So you can see if I take all these away, I'm left just with the gradient, and with clear mode on it means that these bottom pixels are transparent. Otherwise they're solid and they're mixed with the base. So solid mode basically means that any colour that you've allowed in via the slider is mixed with the base tone. And eventually you can customize your own colours and make unique looking brushes. Okay, so I'm going to make up a custom type of brush using this brush, I'm going to press Y to flip it vertically and the mouse wheel or bracket keys to make it smaller. And now I can kind of make some dots. Let's make it a little bit smaller. You can use shift and mouse wheel or shift and bracket for fine tune control. So it will scale the object a little bit more smaller increments. But if you use control and bracket, it does it in really big increments. So shift for small, control for big, and no keys plus just the bracket keys to move in a kind of regular motion. You can also hold down. Shift and hold down will move slower, and control and hold down will move faster in big increments. So I'm just going to make up some little dots here. I'm just thinking about how I can stylize this to make it look more interesting. So I'm using shift and mouse wheel to make these smaller. And what I want to do is I want to grab this image as a new brush. So I use this capture brush here. As you can see, when I click over it, this message down here will change. It says this is the capture tool. When activated, drag over the canvas to grab a new brush. So we start here, we hold and click and then drag over. And now I get to name this brush, and I'm just going to call this arc dots. Basically describe it what it is. That now appears here in the user one category, and I can now draw with even more of that and make lots of them. I can use the R key to rotate it to the right, or the E key to move it to the left. So E and R basically rotate, and scaling, and make some nice pattern up. I can use X to flip it horizontally, and I can also change the colors again. Now these colors are on original colors to the left, but if I bring it to the new colors, you'll see the colors start to change. So anything that's dark gets changed to this color. Anything that was blue, which I don't think there was very much blue in this when I captured it, it was mostly green, and there was not a lot of red in there when I captured it. So most of the color is going to come from the green here. I can go ahead and put some of these little dots in here. Now I can go ahead and even capture this as a new brush, and I can call this arc busy dots. And you can see now as I rotate this and scale it, I can make even more patterns. Okay, I can then change up the colors of this. So as I slide this to the right, you can see all the colors change. Anything that was green becomes this color. Anything that was reddish becomes this color, and anything bluish becomes this. And because the color of these is basically mostly red with a little bit of blue, blue here has a little bit of an influence on these brushes, especially when this slider is all the way to the right, because that is replacing the original colors. Okay, so you get full control of whether you want parts to be transparent or have just like one of the tones come in. So solid mode, transparent mode, and then you can see some of those tones. So I'm just going to press backspace to clear everything, and I'm going to switch back to one of these base brushes here. Now I'm just painting with the red tone. I'm going to control click to make all the tones the same as the one I've clicked. And now if I make this pure red and control click like this, and I actually make it green and control click and make it a little bit smaller, put it in the inside like that, and then I'm going to move to blue and control click and make it even smaller and put it there. And I'm going to capture this brush and I'll call this my RGB test, right? Because I'm going to show you how this works. I'm just going to press backspace to clear everything, and now I'm going to switch this over to new colors, bring all these down, and you'll see that everything disappears because we're in clear mode. It's different from solid mode. And I'm going to start replacing the three tones, the blue, the red and the green, with whatever I want. So I'm going to bring in the blue tone and click, right? Bring in the red tone and click, and bring in the green tone and click. And you can see that's the three components that I basically used to make up this brush. They all have kind of some effect of mixing between each other depending on the values of their tone. But I can go ahead and make these into new tones, bring them all in, mix it with the base a little bit. Not that that really gets seen until we bring it in there. And it only helps to tint things a little bit where it's dark. But now I've got these three tones I can play with. I'm just going to press backspace and I can start to dot these around. You can also hold shift and kind of draw really quickly or really slowly. Okay, I'm just going to make this edge a little bit brighter so that the edge actually matches the tones. So if you do see a little bit of a dark edge on things, it's because the outer edge is more transparent and it's getting tinted by the base tone. Okay, so it's a good idea to make that a little bit brighter. Okay, now that I've got this, I can actually press tab to change the colours at random. There's three modes. When you press tab, the first mode tries to look locally where the mouse is. So you can see a rectangle appears as it tries to sample a certain area. That's controlled by the scale, so as I decrease the scale, you'll see that rectangle that flashes is smaller. So it's picking from a smaller area of colours. So that's the local mode. If I press tab one more time, it's in document mode. There's three modes. There's local, document and random. Local, document, random. Local, document, random. So it goes through these three modes. In random mode, it's basically three random colours. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's switching background to random. So the first mode locally, second mode from the document and anything you've drawn on it, and the third mode random. So you can see from that you get really different colours, and if I go back to the original colour, maybe halfway or a quarter of the way, I'll get variations in the tone. Very subtle. Now if I bring this up even more, okay, so let's go ahead and use this brush to make a custom image. So I'll just use the shift key to kind of make some shapes here. It doesn't really matter right now. All I'm doing is just getting a start on things, and then I can drag the capture brush over there and call this shape 1. Backspace to clear everything, and I can use space to change the background just so I can see things a bit better. I'm going to use tab a few times, but nothing happens because what you need to do is make sure you're changing the original colours with new colours. I'm going to go with this. So I'll click once, press X to flip, and then move down a bit. Maybe even rotate a little with R. Scale down a little. And I'm starting to build up what looks like kind of like a tree shape. So E and R. Scaling. And I'm going to capture this. The capture always ignores the background. Kind of like when you press I, you see everything's transparent and you're just left with this. It's just there to help you see the object for now. And now capture this. and call this tree shape. You see, every time I capture a brush, it basically stores it, so I can always go back and do the extra things. Let's go back to the arc dots and actually draw a little on this. Scale it down a little and just add a bit more detail. And now I can capture this and call it tree shape 2. Okay, and now I've got a kind of tree shape that I can use. I'm just going to use backspace to clear everything, and let's actually start making a background. It's been a while. I'm going to use tab, but make sure I'm on this new color. So I see I've got this kind of stylized looking interesting tree, but each time I press tab I'm getting new colors, which is kind of nice. Maybe I like these colors quite well, so I'm just going to left click here so it stores those, and I like these just in case I lose them. I'm going to left click here. To get them back, I just right click. I'm right clicking to get this tone, or right clicking to get these tones back. You can see the difference here. I can always click on one of these tones to see a preview. So as I right click and go over, you can see how that actually looks. So I can make up a new custom set of tones quite easily. If you want all the tones to be the same, just control click whichever one of these 4 you want all to be. If you also want them all to be identifiable colors, press F5. F5 will replace these with their, the blue tones with blue, the red tones with red, and the green with green, so you can really see how this is made up. So now that I know how this is made up, I'm going to click that down, and I want everything to be blue, so I'm just going to control click the blue tone, and I'll play with the opacity here just so that I get something like this. I'm just going to bring in some blue tones kind of at random like this to make up a whole new brush. So I really think I need a little bit of blue in this. We'll capture that again, and I'll call this tree brush. This is the one I want to use. Backspace, and now I'll press F2 to reset everything. I can do F5 to really see the different tones, and that's pretty much that. Tab to get different tones as well. And now I can bring in some trees that look quite interesting. Now you're thinking to yourself, how is that a good background if it doesn't tile at the edges? Well, if you press W, it's going to tile at the edges. Let's just get a different color. You can see when I click here, it's already made the other side, and down the bottom you can really see how that's becoming a nice kind of foresty, wintry background. I can press X to flip horizontally, E and R to rotate, and the mouse wheel or bracket keys to scale, and start to build up these shapes. Okay, there's lots of layers here as well that you can use. So this layer 10, as I hover over it, you can see all the clicks that I made down the bottom right. And I'll just rename this to trees. You can rename by double clicking. Now I just want to go to the layer, maybe layer 5. I'm going to type in clouds. And we're going to use some of the existing shapes here. So I've clicked on cloud 1. But you can see the colours have adopted the colours that I've got here. I want some colours that are more like the sky, so I'm just going to stay around about the sky area and press tab, and it's already sampled locally for me, but I'm going to do it again, and this time it's sampled from the whole document, and once more it's sampled at random, so it's randomized these colours. Quite like this one. So I click once, press X to flip horizontally, X again, but a little bit of scaling, and so on, and I can build up this nice sky-like background. Let's say I want it all to be brighter. I'm just going to control click one of these, and then for each other tone go a little bit brighter. You can also use the sliders here if it helps. And I've got a much brighter cloud there that I can add to the sky. Let's also make this one brighter. And I'm just going to control click. Now I don't want it to be full opacity, so you can actually use this opacity slider to change the strength. You don't see it in the preview, but you see it when you come out. You can also use the number keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 0. 0 is full opacity, 5 is half opacity, 3 round about a quarter, and so on. So I'll just add in a few more clouds here, just to help bring a little bit of fog in. Speaking of fog, we also have fog. If you go to this rain and fog one, we've got fog 4 here, and I want to go to the layer in front of these trees and just use the mouse wheel. I'm going to press 0 to get full opacity. I'm using the mouse wheel to go bigger, and I'm just going to click some fog in. Now you're allowed to click within this area. You see the black edge here. If you change the UI, you can see that a little bit better. So you're allowed to click in this area, but if you want to click outside of that area, I'm just going to press B to turn the brush back on. Let's choose this all to be white again. If you want to click outside of that area, like somewhere down here, just make sure you hold down the top left key of the keyboard. This is what the message says just above the pointer. Press the inverted apostrophe key to paint whilst outside. So if I hold that down, I can now paint with that. So I've made everything look a little bit foggy now, misty, and I want to add more of those trees in the foreground, but maybe not my trees, maybe some other trees. So I'm just going to look for tree 14, and let's just scale it down. Press tab a few times, and we get some nice looking colours. Tab often helps to find colours that you maybe find hard to reach. Now I quite like this one, so I'm going to come over here and change these a bit to make them look more snowy. You can change them and see which ones do what. You can always go between the original tones and the new tones to really see which colours you're changing. For example, the trunk of the tree has got red and blue in there, so I know that red and blue is going to change the trunk, but the trees are mostly blue and maybe a little bit of green. Okay, so I can add this into the foreground, make it a little bit bigger. In fact, let's move the layer to a higher number, and I'm going to type in foreground. And make this one a little bit smaller and press X to flip it horizontally. And maybe tilt it a little bit to the right and scale it down a bit more, just to get a little variation there. I do want the tone to be a little bit more contrasty, so I'm just going to pull this down to the left a little bit to get a little bit of a different tone. And that's now the foreground being made, and we have the background, the trees and the clouds. Now what I want to do is capture all of this, but not the foreground, so I'm just going to hide the foreground and then save or export the image, and I'll save this as the background one. Okay, and then I'm just going to alt click on the eye so that we only see the foreground here, but I'm going to press I to also hide this, and then I'll do Control S or export the image, and this is going to be called the foreground. Foreground 1. So I now have two images that I can use for some kind of parallax scrolling. I'm going to control click on this eye. You can control click on any eye to bring them all back, and then press the eye itself to bring the gradient back. And remember, you can always change the gradient for the sky to whatever you want to see what works. Maybe an orange tone works. Blues tend to work nice for winter, but you might just want a bit of contrast. Now I'm just going to right click to get these two tones back. So these are like your little storage tabs, and I quite like that. Now I'm going to press P to preview what a parallax scroll might look like, so you can see how things shift around. Now I quite like the way the trees and the sky and the gradient are separated, and that's because of the trees being in their own layer. So I'm going to alt click and press I to turn off the background, and you can see the clouds are also hidden. And I want to save this actually, so I'm going to export image as the background one. And now I want to turn off the trees and turn on the clouds and press I to get the gradient back. And I can see I could use maybe a little bit more work with the clouds down the bottom here. So let's just go to the clouds. I'm going to alt pick to pick a color like this, and just make sure when you alt pick that you're on one of these colors, because it will change these as well. I'm just going to right click to restore that. Make sure you're on one of these, and then alt pick and then control click so they all get that same tone. You can see it's tinted a little bit because of this slider. Just going to make sure that's all up to new, so all these new replacements, and then press 7 and start just blocking these down. I just want to make sure that the clouds really kind of cover the bottom there. And that's going to be my main background. You can see it tiles quite nice here. You can also use the right mouse wheel to move around a bit and check everything. Just be sure to press the middle mouse button or the home key to reset that. Otherwise you're going to record that offset as well. It's not a big deal, but it's just in case you had a certain look that you're not able to re-achieve. You can also take out some of these tones and be left with some extra textures, and that just helps to fluff these clouds up a bit more. There's also plenty of other clouds that you can use for extra detail. Okay, that's going to do for that, and I just want to save this with Control S as the main background, so I'll call this background 0. And that's pretty much it. So if I was to load in each of these brushes, you can see I've got background 0. I'm just going to press backspace to clear everything, and F2 to reset the brushes, and make sure I'm on original tones, and control mouse wheel until I get to the scale of 1 here, and now I can simply, let's just change the gradient so I can see that. Simply just place this in. Let's load in the trees one, which I think is this one. Yeah, that one's an old one. I'm just going to rename this to trees. Just make sure you add the PNG if you ever rename anything. So be sure to keep that PNG and bring that in. Call it tree layer. And I'm just going to move up to the trees layer and click this in place. Make sure you're on scale 1 and click that down. I'm going to control click to put all the layers back on before I place that down. somewhere around about here. Okay, and foreground, we can load that in just to check these, not really to use in here, but I'm just going to check them. I call this 4.1. Up to the foreground layer, and just place this in somewhere. Okay, I'm going to press B to turn the brush off, and then P to put on parallax. You can see the same effect, and it's from three plots here, from 3 brushes. So now that it's got these, it's saved them out. I can use them in any game that I make, and use them as a kind of scrollable background. So that's pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope that you like using this for making parallax backgrounds, and I'd love to see what you manage to make with it, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching, bye!